are powers on Earth too hidden to be seen, and conspiracies too vast to comprehend. For years, the world has seen fact distorted, reality manipulated, and the truth concealed. Join the Pierre Sebac podcast to uncover the real meanings behind ancient aliens and their symbolism.
Hi, this is Pierre Sebac, unlocking the keys to the mysteries. Now today I'm going to be talking about explicative symbolism, but I'm going to be combining this with the first creation because explicative symbolism is quite technical. So I want to try and cover two birds with one stone and try and explain what the first creation is, but also combine that with explicative symbolism. So first of all, we'll just go into what the first creation actually is. Now the first creation refers to the formation of the whole universe. This is conceived as the Supreme Spirit or the Absolute. Now within Gnostic traditions, the first creation is linked into the Aeonic Spirit, which is often referred to as Sophia, Sophia being knowledge. In this respect, this would be the Logos or the Word, which is the expression of the Word, which is vibration, which manifests as a particle or which manifests as physical creation. So this is the juxtaposition between the spiritual and the incarnation of the spiritual, or the implicated and explicated order. So the first creation is distinct from the second creation because the second creation specifies the planting of the Adamic races upon the earth. Now this is what we find within the occult tradition and within the philosophical tradition. There is the reference to panspermia, which is the planting of man's seed from the stars onto the earth. Now this is referred to within the Quranic discourse as the second creation. So we can see therefore that the first creation therefore is very different from the first creation, because the second creation really is making reference to the planting of the seed, the terraformation of planets which are associated with the Elohim. Now obviously within the occult and Gnostic traditions, the formation of the physical world is often attributed to the demiurge. The demiurge literally means the public craftsman. The public craftsman in this respect is the genetic engineer. So the demiurge is as often denigrated within occult philosophy and is seen to be detrimental to the expression of the spiritual. Now the demiurge assigned himself above creation. So in other words, the Gnostics viewed the demiurge as being a false god because he himself said that he created mankind and that he created the universe. Now the demiurge did create mankind because the demiurge is the seeder of worlds, but the demiurge did not create the universe or the spirit. This is something which is very distinct. Now within science, the first creation can be summed up really as the Big Bang, if we want to view this in very simplistic terms. So it's the start of everything. It's the beginning of the single point, which in many respects is exponential to the ultimate being the absolute or the supreme. Now the supreme in this respect is the representation of the holographic universe of all forms. In Platonic philosophy, this would be the expression of particular forms, and these particular forms are particularized from universal forms. Within quantum physics, you see the relationship between the implicated and explicated order. So as we said, this really within Greek philosophy is the emanation of the aeon, which creates all form. This is really the representation of the holographic universe. So the aeon, it can be represented as concentric circles, and these concentric circles go outwards. And this is very similar to the type of interference pattern that you would find within a hologram. So if we want to just very quickly summarize the major differences between the first and second creations, we can say the following. So the first creation is really, it's the expression of the supreme and ultimate spirit, and how that is materialized into all forms. It is essentially the creation of the universe. As we said before, within physics, this would be the Big Bang. We could also refer to this as the singularity. So it's the singularity of all creation from one point which emanates outwards. This singular point is beyond time, but when it manifests out into physical form, then this is the expression of the finite. So this is the expression of the physical universe, in which all physical forms are subject to entropy, decay, and is therefore, when we look at this in terms of the demiurge, is often seen as the denigration of creation. And this indeed links up within Greek philosophy to the denigration of the anthropos, which was the three original races, which was a seraphim, the cherubim, which were the proto-humans, and then we have the combination of those races, which would be a grafted bloodline. And these original or proto-races were denigrated through genetic engineering, through the demiurge, or the public craftsman, the demiurgos in the Greek. So we see, therefore, with the first creation, we see the creation not only of man, but we also see within the Gnostic philosophy also the creation of the Elohim. And this is significant because the Elohim are attributed with the planting of humans upon the planet. So we're seeing, therefore, that the first creation is ascribed to the creation of what we would describe as the anthropos, and this is referring to the proto-humans, but also to the Elohim. The Elohim are ascribed to the symbology of the seraphim. The seraphim are this serpent or reptilian race. Now there is a contrast then with the second creation, because the Elohim are deemed to be impostors within Gnostic philosophy. So they elevated themselves as gods and they deceived mankind. They're also linked into the terraformation of the earth and the modification of the Adamic man, which was taken from the anthropos, or the proto-human, which within angelology is aligned to the cherubim. The cherubim are the proto-human angels, which are ascribed astrologically to the Pleiades. That's a very complicated argument, and in some time in the future I want to actually look into some of the etymologies and show why the cherubim are aligned to the Pleiades astrologically. But essentially, with the second creation, we have what is the recreation and the seeding of the Adamic races. Now this leads into the covenant of worlds, which astrologically are assigned to Orion. The covenant of the worlds is a combination. Basically, in heaven, there was a war in heaven between the Titans and the humans and the Elohim. This is known as Titanomach within the Greek. So this is the war within heaven. Now, essentially, there was a covenant, and all sides agreed basically to a standoff. And so this is the covenant of worlds, which, as I said before, is aligned astrologically to Orion. So it links into what is essentially a very complicated mythology in which the Adamic man is paralleled to Mars. So we see that there is this relationship between Adam and Machadim, Mars, within the occult tradition. So the remnants of mankind, which were initially destroyed, they were taken to Mars, or they went to Mars. This seed then was destroyed or annihilated. Sections of this seed were then taken to the moon and then were placed upon the earth. This also links into the traditions of Atlantis and to the flooding of the earth. So it's a very complicated mythology, and we only have fragments or scraps of what actually occurred. So this leads us in then to looking at the different races and looking at how we can therefore apply explicative symbolism. So I want to now move on to explicative symbolism and try and tie up some of these loose ideas together. So the word explicative is coming from the Latin root, which is explicare, which is to unfold or fold out, to set or to arrange in order. Now, in many respects, it's a wordplay, and it expresses analogous concepts which are framed within single languages or related discourses. So, for example, we would say that there is an analogous concept between the seraphim and Safina, a ship, because the angels and the emissaries are viewed as naval emissaries or naval sailors. So there is this relationship within the wordplays, and this is really how explicative symbolism works, because it's folding out analogous concepts. So we see within the seraphic tradition that there is this relationship also with Yahweh Sabaoth, who is the Lord of the host. As we said before, there is a relationship with Sabaoth, Sevet crew, Tevar and Ark. Within the seraphic tradition, this would be Seraph, Sapana sailor, Safina a ship. So these are all examples of explicative symbolism. Now, we see then that there is this relationship between Tevar and Ark in the Old Semitic Tebar, which is used to refer to a carrier. Now, within the occult tradition, this carrier transported the seed of Noah during the deluge and was carried upon a ship. Now, this ship is often viewed within ancient manuscripts and illuminated manuscripts as being a round vessel, and is stylized as the Ophanim wheel, so it's shown as being round. So typically the angelic host and their angelic carriers are deemed as being round or spherical, and this feeds into the scaphological tradition. The scaphological tradition is a representation of ships within ancient mythology, but particularly angelic carriers or vessels correlated with the angelic host. So the seed of man after the deluge is stored in the moon or the lunar receptacle. Now this in symbolism appertains to the man in the moon, so that is a cryptic signifier of the seed of mankind being stored on the moon. Now the man in the moon in many respects relates to the promise of new life, and again is a symbol of the covenant, because within the biblical tradition you have the rainbow, which is the covenant between man and the Elohim, and the crescent itself makes the rainbow or the shape of the rainbow, and again is feeding into the traditions of the seed of man, which was stored within the lunar receptacle. Now the symbolism with the moon, it's extremely involved and it's very complex, and it covers covert symbolism within the fertility cults. It also is very closely tied in with the traditions of panspermia and the second creation, which is the planting of this Adamic seed. Again, historically, the planting of the Adamic man is closely tied in with the neophyte, in the Greek neophuton or neophutos, which are the newly planted. So the newly planted, again, corresponds with the planting of the Adamic man. But the neophyte, again, has this connotation of this grafted bloodline. So the plant, phuton, plant, phot, light, as this connotation of one who is from heaven, or one who has been planted and one who has been grafted. If we have a look at some of the wording then, if we look at the terminology in the Latin, satellite, moon, the moon itself is a genetic storehouse and stored the seed of mankind. And we're finding some of the clues to this within the Roman etymologies. So, for example, satellitis is an attendant, otherwise a neophyte or a newly planted. This is within the Latin. It relates to satya, which is the sowing or the planting of seeds or sown fields. So again, the moon is a symbol of the fertility cults. It is the symbol of the nocturnal priesthood, which is aligned to fertility. It's linked in to menstrual blood. Again, satya, which is sowing or planting, has this connotation of satus, which is a race, stock, or a seed. So this is a seed from the moon, the man in the moon. The man in the moon going back to the arcane traditions of the deluge, when the seed of man was stored in the lunar receptacle. And this is referred to within the Zoroastrian tradition. So we see also that there is this polyglottal symbolism between moon and man, but also within the Greek, Semele, a moon goddess, is related in the Latin to simia, an ape, because as we said before, the bloodline of man, which can be represented as an ape, which is the Euclidean tradition, was planted within the receptacle or within the vessel of the moon. And so that's basically, if we want to sum up this within a simple sequence, we could say that satus, a race, stock, or a seed, goes back in the biblical traditions to Noah, and goes back to satya, which is sowing, which is essentially the planting of mankind, which is panspermia. So the seed of humanity is therefore stored on the lunar receptacle, which is a satellite. And again, the satellite or satellitus refers to an attendant of the mysteries, a servant or a follower. The connotation is of a neophyte, neophytus, one who is newly planted, which again goes back to the Adamic races and the planting of the Adamic races, which originally, as I said before, had the connotation of a Martian, Machadim, Mars, Adam, which is red, Adam, which is mankind. This was a genetically altered or tweaked races which came from the Anthropos. The Anthropos was corrupted, and from the corruption of the Anthropos, or through the corruption of the proto-human, we have the Adamic races. Essentially, this refers to the recreation of the earth and the second creation, which is covered under the covenant of worlds, which astrologically is aligned both to Orion, which is again aligned to the Adamic races, and the Nephilim. Nephilia is Orion. We've got the Jibbarim. Jibbar is Orion in the Arabic. But we're also seeing that there is a strong affiliation with the Seraphim. So Sirius would be aligned to the Seraphim, Seraph of fire. Sirius is the scorching one. Sirius Aster is the scorching star. Scorching star in this respect is referring to the jinn, those who are born of the fire, which is a cryptic signifier of the seraphim and how they are aligned to the planting of mankind, which are correlated with the second creation. So that's essentially a breakdown of the first creation, how it's contrasted with the second creation, and how that can play in with explicative symbolism. Explicative symbolism is essentially a symbol which is arranged with other word groups or word associations which are related together. Okay, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. Thank you for listening. I look forward to speaking to you all again. This is Pierre Sabak. Let's try and make this a better world. Thank you very much. Thank you.